Well, all right. I know it's been a while since we've had an opportunity to share with you some of the things that are cooking on the back burner for the Family Budget Fisherman channel and website and Instagram and Facebook page. But we're going to catch up. We've got a lot of information that we would like to share with you, and we're looking forward to you participating in the channel with us by liking, subscribing, and hitting that bell notification so that, whenever we do post videos, you'll get an opportunity to see what we have on a particular time. So without further ado, today what we're going to be talking about specifically is the 5 categories of baits. If you're a multi-species fisherman, what are the 5 best categories of baits that you could use while fishing? Now, I would like for you to know that these baits are something that you could do. You could use any time of the year: spring, winter, summer, fall. Also, you can use them when it's hot, when it's cold, or anywhere in between. If you've had the opportunity to see our previous video, which dealt with being a successful multi-species fisherman, particularly for fresh water, what you will learn from that video is that fish eat every day of the year. They eat when it snows. They eat when it's scorching. They eat when the water's 75 degrees. They eat when the water's 40 degrees. It just matters, or 30 or 20 degrees. It just matters what the conditions are that allow for that particular fish to forage. That's it. Okay. And I would like for you, there will be a link in the description below so that you can actually take a look at that particular video. So the video previous to this one would be being a successful multi-species freshwater fisherman. And this is the baits that you would be using year round. Now, also I would like to say that while these baits you could use year round, you can do substitutes depending on your region, where you live, what your water conditions are, because you can use different types of bait throughout the year in different regions of the country that may not work in other regions of the country. So these baits here I found to be the most universal in the places that I fish from various locations around our state of California here. So I want to share with you. So without further ado, we're going to look at some of these particular baits. All right, so here we go. We have 5 categories of baits that, as I stated earlier, can be used year-round no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing. These categories of baits will be the most enduring for all 4 seasons, with no matter what the weather is, no matter how hot it is, how cold it is, how windy it is, how choppy the water is, all these baits will work. So over here we have our diving baits. Now, I want you to notice that the diving baits are actually smaller than your normal use if you're a bass fisherman in particular. These baits are about 2 inches to 2¼ inch in length. They dive on the deepest about 5 feet. Some may go a little bit deeper. You can get it down to 7 or 8 feet if you work it really interestingly. But there you go. You have those diving baits there. Now, as you can see here, there are different colors as well. Now, some colors will work better at different times of year, as you know, dealing with water clarity, etc. But these just happen to be the ones most successful for me. Let me say this to you. When we're dealing with this kind of bait for universal multi-species fishing, I would not concern myself with the color so much, except for in the extreme cases. Your typical, your browns, your blues, your greens, and we're talking about more of the translucent colors. We're not talking about, the vibrant colors. Like this is a more vibrant color than the others. You want the more subtle colors. Okay. Now, next we have our swim baits, and as you can see, I have two different types of swim baits here, and I have three different kind of color combinations. I got the paddle tail and two fork tails there. So for those 3-inch, these are your 3-inch baits. These baits are very universal, very well accepted for just about every species of freshwater fish that are very active. You just put your name on it and you can throw these baits for that. The next category we have here are our bladed baits. So as you can see here, we have 1/8 ounce, one with a hook trailer or stinger hook as we call it, and one without. Also notice that one has a double blade and another one has a single blade. Those at this level are very immaterial. I brought them out both so that you could notice that it would not matter whichever you decide. You may just be looking at color, mostly for clarity's sake, not necessarily because, one pattern is like the dynamite pattern. Okay. Now, the next one are your tube baits. Your tube baits are even more successful than your creature baits, your crawls and your sweet beavers and the like. And the main reason is because they imitate more types of forage. They imitate crawdads when they need to, but they also imitate fish when they need to as well. Where your crawdads tend not to represent the wide breadth just as much. That said, depending on the kind of weight that you put in here and the kind of hook that you use, you can get it to act more like a crawdad, or you can get it to act more like a dying fish, something that's easy prey for the fish to go after. Another category here are your another category here are your jigs. And as you can see, I have different types from the more subtle single tail to the paddle tail to the curly tail. Depending on how active the fish are, you may want to choose which tail you may use to move a little bit or a lot of water. But that said, you can use these year-round for every species that is vying for that particular forage. So I want you to take a look at all 5 of those and notice that all of them are not very big. You have your 3-inch tubes here. You have your 2-inch jigs here. You have your 1/8 ounce bladed baits. You have your 3-inch swim baits, and then you have your 2 1/4 inch diving baits. Also notice what I do not have here. I don't have top water. And the reason why is because while top water is great, top water doesn't work everywhere all the time. You can't get it to work very good all 4 seasons long. Now that said, there are people who can do it. Those are outliers. That's not what's typical. That's an outlying situation. Just as is an outlying situation that you can catch a bluegill, a 6-inch bluegill on a 1/2 ounce spinnerbait. That's an outlier. That's not typical. Or if I had a bass jig sitting out here, one of those big bass jigs out here, and you catch, a bunch of 10 to 12-inch crappie, it can happen, but it is not typical. So what you have presented here are the most typical baits that one could use for fishing any species of fish. And when I say any species of freshwater fish, I'm specifically referring to your largemouth, your smallmouth bass, your largemouth bass, your smallmouth bass, your spotted bass, your striped bass. I'm referring to your salmon, your trout. name the freshwater species, and that would apply. I'm also referring to your crappie, your bluegill, and drum roll please, your catfish. Yes, it is very typical. You can catch catfish on bait, on plastic bait, all day and all night if you know where those species of fish are. It is not a unique situation. It's very typical. So there you have it with those species there. All right. Well, I hope that was a bit of an education just to kind of give you some insight on what kind of bait you would use, especially if you're new to multi-species fishing rather. A lot of people could be specific genre style fishermen. They may be bass fishermen, or they may be kokanee, trout fishermen, or salmon fishermen, or crappie fishermen, or sturgeon fishing, or striped bass fishing. If you come from one of those specific groups, or you're a beginner and you don't come from any of those, or let's take it all the way across, you are a saltwater fisherman and you're transitioning into freshwater. This would be some really good advice to share with you to get you started in multi-species fishing, so that you could have some of your widest opportunities to catch your best bag limit of fish, even to the point where you catch your personal best. So I just wanted to share that with you for this particular episode. My hope is that you would enjoy getting out there and fishing and doing your best. Remember what I always like to say to you: don't try to break your family budget, but definitely get out there and try to break your personal best. Have a great time out there on the water.